Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay. James, you have the floor. Yep.
Thank you, Kelly, and thanks for all the speakers and the really important reflections that just arose. As was anticipated by Gabriele at the opening, we want to use the next session, about the next 60 minutes, to look at one of the elements that is part of the humanitarian reset on area-based coordination. We're super happy to have a couple of speakers, and then we'll have time for discussion at the end. So first, we'll have Mariana Skurik Pradnovic from OCHA, and then we will be followed by really ground truthing, really understanding that from South Sudan. Dr. Mukesh Kumar will talk about area-based coordination there in South Sudan. So with no further ado, may I ask Mariana to take the floor and give her presentation?
Hi, James. We're waiting for Mariana to join. She hasn't joined yet.
Right.
Just sent her a message,
I have just joined.
Oh, you have? Oh, great.
Apologies, I was closing another session somewhere else, so apologies if I was a bit late. I understood it was 4:10, but here I am.
Great, Mariana. Well, we gave you an incredible introduction. We're 5 minutes ahead of schedule, so thank you for joining us. Do you need a minute to catch your breath, or?
No, it's fine. It's all good. I'm here, so it's all fine. I'm just going to hope that Veronique was going to be able to just project the presentation. Is that a yes, Veronique?
It's a yes. Give me just a second.
It's a yes. Excellent. So I didn't hear the incredible introduction, but it's amazing that you were ahead of schedule, because that's not how we usually function in these forums. So amazing that you are. Pleasure to be with you. And I'm sorry I didn't hear the initial speakers this in the previous session, who I'm sure have spoken to you at length on the humanitarian reset and what's happening there. So I'm not going to go into the detail, but just to show you the infographic, which I'm sure you saw on the 10-point plan, if you don't mind going there, Veronique, to the next slide, where obviously there are many aspects that are being looked at, right? And we have the humanitarian reset that's happening. We also have the UNAT, which is happening at the same time, and one is obviously informing the other. So there is that strong connection between the two. Now, just in terms of area-based coordination and how that's featured, and I know the previous speaker spoke to this too, if you don't mind moving on, Veronique, is how does area-based coordination feature? And so beyond the initial observations on the cluster approach being too heavy, bureaucratic, as you would have known from the different reviews that took place over the last 2 years, too centralized and too UN-centric, the solution to a lot of this has been found in area-based coordination. Now, there is no doubt that area-based coordination provides many answers, but it is a bit of a mythical creature in the sense that a lot of people talk about it, but not everyone. Actually, no one really fully agrees what it is. And so while it's happened in different pockets and in different parts of different countries, and sometimes in entire countries, what we've seen is a variety of different approaches. And then if you speak to different sectors or different clusters, they will themselves also have different approaches in terms of area-based. And so, we have heard about area-based programming and area-based approaches and area-based coordination. And often all of these concepts are being said in one breath. And they often are used by different actors to denote different things. So while it's been seen as a bit of a miracle solution, it's also been something that hasn't been fully defined. So this is, and I'll come to what we've done about that, because I think that's important. And now what's come out of a lot of these discussions has also been that area-based coordination model should really be scaled at local and subnational levels, typically level admin 2 to 4, and linked to existing sectoral structures. And obviously that there is a need to integrate area-based coordination into existing humanitarian coordination. One thing that's really important about area-based coordination and that people often fail to remember, but many people know, and many of you know, is that area-based coordination is not a new concept. It's existed for more than a decade. Actually, some people say more than 2 decades. So it's not new as in it is now a new creation that someone's thought of. It's something that's been applied in different ways in different contexts and quite successfully. And as I said, different organizations have quite different views about it. So what do we do about this at global level? One of my jobs is also, beyond managing a section in OCHA, is also to co-lead the Global Cluster Coordination Group. And the global clusters have been very active and I think engaged in different discussions on alternative models and how the cluster approach needs to be improved, and have also been critical elements of the discussions that have now led to the most recent meeting of the principals and the forthcoming changes and tweaks, if you like, in how we work on the cluster approach. Decided that it was really important, because of these varying definitions that exist, because of all these different contexts where it's applied differently, to categorize and define it. So if you don't mind moving on, Veronique. So we as a group decided to commission a report by an independent consultant. It was supported by OCHA and UNICEF, in the sense that OCHA hired a consultant, UNICEF very kindly covered for the travel. And its purpose was to categorize and define area-based coordination, or attempt to define it, document lessons learned and outline implications, and also look at how area-based coordination can support shared objectives and link to the IC coordination architecture. Now, this work began more than a year ago. Actually, the thinking around it started 2 years ago, quite a lot of time before all these new changes appeared on the horizon. I think it's been very timely. It's been quite lucky that we are now finishing this report, and then we'll look at, practical application. What does this mean? How can we actually then disseminate it and make sure that people have learned about it? But it's it's been quite fortuitous in terms of planning times, because it aligns with this whole push to move to more area-based coordination models. The methodology was to have 12 case studies across 6 operations. The consultant interviewed more than 200 stakeholders, did a desk review and field visits. The limitation was that there was no interviews with affected populations, affected people, because there was just no time, and we were very much, if you like, limited by also resources. The countries covered were Mali, Nigeria, South Sudan, Ukraine, and Yemen, and you will hear straight from our colleague on one of these, so I won't even try to summarize what each one of these said, but it's been quite useful to see the range of different models that exist. The report also proposes a definition. Now, before anyone says, oh, but this is a definition, that is the consultant's proposal based on everything he's heard from everyone. How do we define area-based coordination? Whether we will now all agree to it, obviously the report is an independent report. We'll need to discuss it further. Veronique, if you don't mind moving on. And it basically suggests that area-based coordination is an interagency coordination structure, typically administrative level 2, addressing issues at lower levels. It's led by a subnational state actor, an NGO, or an UN organization. It could have 3 main functions: response gaps, limiting interagency duplications, and also joint advocacy on civil military access and protection issues. It may support area-based programming. There's also a definition of area-based programming in the report, and it may also have links to pooled fund instruments. It's really interesting because the report also went probably further on pooled funds than we expected. Not everyone will necessarily agree on every aspect of this, but that's something that has yet to be further discussed, and it's, I think, part of general discussions that are taking place. I'm just going to take 2 minutes to go through 6 key lessons learned as outlined by the consultancy. If you don't mind, Veronique. Another slide. So the first is that the current coordination architecture, you will not be surprised to hear, struggles with multi-sector targeting, despite the thematic and risk-based lens definitions being best suited for Nexus work. The second is that area-based coordination and programming have facilitated the participation of subnational state actions, national local actors, and affected people, but decision-making and authority of the response remains centralized at the national level. And I think this is one of the hard nuts that the principles are trying to crack with all these changes in the humanitarian reset. How do we also devolve some of that power? And I think that will be the critical thing that will really define on how we move forward. The third is a lack of structured learning, which meant that HCs, HDTs reinvented the wheel on area-based coordination in different contexts, perhaps unnecessarily. So obviously a need to formalize the learning across the system and to be better at sharing that learning. And that the effectiveness of area-based coordination is contingent on thoughtful design and sustained support. So that would mean formal terms of reference, looking at accountabilities in particular, dedicated capacity for chairs who will be coordinating these area-based mechanisms, learning, technical support, and so on. And then fifth would be predictability and accountability. So it's really about establishing the standard terms of reference and seeing how that actually helps outline roles and responsibilities. Veronique, if you don't mind moving on, and mutual accountabilities, and also looking at how country-based full funds can support area-based coordination. So some of the suggestions are to simplify and harmonize reporting requirements and developing planning tools for area-based coordination. And then finally, leadership and membership. It's really about dedication of coordination capacity and making sure that that the chairs who are chairing these mechanisms are, even if they're part-time, they're rather part-time than double-hatting, and that they can effectively lead area-based coordination, but also link it to the overall coordination architecture. I'm going to just perhaps end by saying that, one of the things that is really, really critical is that when we look at area-based coordination and we look at the sort of the investment we need to make in terms of facilitation and language skills and so on. Veronique, if you don't mind moving, there should be one more. That we should also take into account the present moment, which is fewer resources at our disposal, and that the fear is that area-based coordination, as supportive it is to local actors, as much as it promotes them really leading it, it will not happen in a vacuum, and it cannot happen without some investments. So it will not take away costs. It will not take away the necessity and the responsibility for us, I think, collectively to support these actors in leading coordination, because that's the critical part. It will not happen in a vacuum. So lastly, we hope that this report and everything that comes out of it will really help facilitate learning across contexts. I think what the consultant found that, there were some perhaps unnecessarily long cycles in relearning the same thing in one context to another context. So we hope that once we get to wider dissemination, this will also help avoid this, and that we will actually have much better insights and a quicker, if you like, learning curve in new contexts where we decide to do it. So that's it from my side. Back to you, dear colleagues, and very happy to answer questions at the end, but I'm sure you're keen to hear colleagues to actually talk about how it works in a country context. Over to you.
Thank you, Mariana, for a very nice presentation, really setting the stage for us on the thinking that's been going on from long ago up to the present and how we look to evolve. Just calling out colleagues to note that in the chat, please do feel free to put your questions at any time. so that you don't forget them and we don't forget them, so that they can be addressed by the speakers. May I ask Dr. Mukesh Kumar to please excite us about his work in South Sudan and how partners are doing area-based coordination there.
Thank you so much. Greetings from South Sudan. I can see that lots of excitement is coming on ABC in when we are passing in a difficult situation. So while my slides are uploaded, let me just give a little bit background. Those who may not be knowing, South Sudan is the youngest country in the world, born in 2011, and before it started learning crawling and walking, again went into the civil war, and then we are still facing consequences of that long civil war, independence, and then again civil war. Veronique, looks like it's taking long. Let me do it again.
Mukesh, the presentation is visible, at least to me. I assume to others.
Yeah, now it took a little bit long, but now I think it is visible. Please confirm, James.
Yes, Mukesh, it seems to be moving.
It's visible.
Yeah, it took a little bit long, sorry. So as I said, South Sudan, we are still struggling to get better governance, better security, better opportunity to grow. As I said, from before we started walking, we went again back, and then that effect is still going on. Country is facing multiple concurrent emergencies, one after one. So if you right now Upper Nile, you have a cholera, you have a active communal violence, food insecurity, and impending now flood because this is a rainy season. So that's happening in South Sudan. Complex humanitarian crisis, Sudan crisis, flood, food insecurity, outbreaks, and not a single outbreak, but cholera, mpox, hepatitis E, and anthrax. 2025 HNRPs, according to 2025 HNRP, we have a people in need, almost 9 million. More than half population is in IPC 3 plus food insecurity. This is recent analysis came just week before. We have 1.1 million refugees and 2 million IDPs. Some IDPs, even it is they are decade long they are staying. Other compounding issues, internal conflicts, which is leading to mass displacement, conflict-driven collapse of health system, fragile infrastructure, poor domestic health financing, and current economic meltdown. So this is the situation in South Sudan. As a health cluster, we have estimated 5.7 million people in need, 3.1 million we have targeted, and we have around 72 partners. Out of that, half are having projects, and they are reporting from 62 out of 80 counties. As of today, health cluster has been funded approximately 6%. And this is because also like BHA, some funding was earmarked and then it has been reduced. So now if you see here, it is 18%, but it has now gone to 6%. As Marina mentioned about ABC, area-based coordination, when we got a new humanitarian coordinator This concept started developing in January 2023. In fact, not developing, but it's more of implementing in South Sudan. HCT finalized February TOR for area-based leadership in February 2023, and three organizations agreed to deploy area-based leaders, and these are based on also organizations' traditional functions in three states. So UNDP, UNHCR, and IOM deployed three area-based leaders based on states' progress. In Western Baragazal state, which is more of on development road, UNDP deployed area-based leader in in Malakal and Bentiu, which is still going on. Emergency is going on, wider displacement is there. So UNHCR and IOM deployed each one. So we have now three area-based leader in three different states with different context. Aim was to decentralize area-specific coordination platform, as Marina mentioned. Nexus-driven planning, bringing humanitarian development and peace, all actors together at state and from field level, and strong community component for accountability to affected population. So if you see in a triangle, upper is HCT, UNCT, area-based leadership. In middle, and then on the ground, all stakeholders, state authorities, clusters, UNMIS, development peace sectors. Aim is that area-based leader which is in middle will connect both UNCT, HCT up and down the field stakeholders in field. We had in 2024 we had which was like a 2023 we rolled out, and middle of 2024 we had a meeting between cluster coordinators, which is ICCG, and area-based leadership, and then we brainstorm what is working and not working. So based on that, plus also my own experiences, what is working is yes, there is a strengthened alignment between humanitarian and development planning, like quarterly joint ABL, ICCG, RCO meeting in all three locations, which is helping bringing all together, all actors together and plan together. Better coordination among local government, clusters, UNMIS, and communities, engagement with local and state authorities, as well as traditional leaders, bringing trust and foster shared ownership, joint planning through ABC, ICCG. For example, in development context, state development plans are made under leadership of area-based leader together with state authorities. ABC's facilitation on bottom-up engagement, particularly community component was inbuilt in that, particularly in two locations where ABL has been asked to ensure that community groups are bring into the system and have interactions so that their reflections comes in planning and response. Enhanced feedback mechanism and local solutions, which I just said, community consultation into location, WOW, which is development oriented, and Malakal, which is more of a humanitarian oriented. What didn't work or challenges? Fragmented linkages between area-based leader, technical groups, and national coordination mechanisms. So very less interactions at national level with different coordinating bodies like ICCG and other sectoral one, except having a direct line with HCRC. Gaps in data and information sharing across sectors and level. So that's something that needs to, in case ABC we have to roll out, needs to be strengthen limited follow-up on joint plans and activities, role clarity challenges, sometimes clashing roles, whether OCHA head is responsible for humanitarian or area-based leader for humanitarian coordination, so or duplication. Resource constraints, insufficient funding for ABL support, like area-based leader is the only one person. So if he or she goes on R&R, who will take leadership in and to fill his or her absence? Challenges in aligned sectoral and geographical planning frameworks, inadequate feedback loops between state, subnational and national actors, limitations in sustaining participation because of many reasons, per security and partners capacity, need for systematized coordination with clusters and ICCG, importance of sharing information on funding gaps and priorities. And another one is more of like a for humanitarian, it is little bit sluggishness in planning and decision making, while it is fine for the development sectors to go step by step and taking a time. Role of clusters in sector coordination with ABCs. As I said, it was more of national. ABC reports direct to the HCS, HC/RC, but at state level, our state focal persons who has also this responsibility of cluster coordinations, regular exchanges were much helping. Positive synergies, use of contingency planning, multi-sector analysis by consulting development sectors through ABL. That is also it helped. Coordination challenges, navigating operational overlap, mandates and reporting line. Apart from this, this was synergies that helped between clusters and an ABL rollout ABC. While we have this ABC, which is a recognized system, but other supportive mechanisms also helped, which can be also, which we cannot ignore, or we when we strengthen ABC, we have to take in consideration state ICCGs, particularly when active humanitarian response is going, situation is going, we state ICCs are still relevant. And these are in South Sudan, it's a OCHA-led deployment at state level, and clusters have a dedicated cluster coordinators, particularly at the states which are in active humanitarian situation. In South Sudan, out of 10, 3 states are more in active humanitarian situations. OCHA's field coordination, this is also something where OCHA doesn't have a presence, and coordination required, particularly remote locations. Local NGO has been identified as a focal person on behalf of OCHA and cluster partners, which represents, communicate and share informations from deep field to the state and national level. Cluster specific initiatives, like so when Sudan crisis happen, particularly rank, which is a global visible and where major influx is coming in South Sudan. Health cluster initially deployed dedicated cluster coordinators, and then eventually we established health and nutrition joint cluster meetings. So now not having a separate meetings, because at authority level, country health director is responsible for health and nutrition, and it's working well. Under cholera task force, health, nutrition and wash response is coordinating under one platform. Recently we had a joint planning for country pool fund reserve allocation, which was also helping to reflect remote needs, while it decision making happen at national level. health sector transformation project, which is previously known as Humanitarian Pool Fund, which is a regular health service delivery mechanism currently supported by World Bank, UNICEF, and WHO. Here, partners are assigned to implement regular service delivery at a county level, and Ministry of Health and partners supported mechanism. So, Ministry of Health is under leadership and stewardship at county level. So that's a county level coordination mechanism, particularly for regular health services. And we are planning also to linked with humanitarian response, so that we have a similar like area based coordination for health at level 3 or 4 level, fourth one. Reflections, I won't say recommendations, but yes, in that way, for partners, invest in local coordination capacity, streamline data tools, support joint advocacy. For clusters, embrace adaptive planning with ABC, maintain technical oversight which still relevant, which will while enabling area autonomy. And for donors, leaders support and scale up. The last one, in conclude, ABC offers promising shift in coordination. South Sudan's pilot experience shows both potential as well as need for strategic support. What is required is balanced, field-informed approach rather than just copy-paste from other context or following a global one. It is very important that time, place, and person that we need take into the take account in order to have a successful ABC. Let me, I'm finishing my presentation. I hope I did enough justification within time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukesh. And certainly to answer your question, yes, I think you've done a marvelous job really to help us understand ABC in South Sudan. We already have a couple of comments coming in on the chat. If people want to speak about their own experiences or the comments of the presenters, please do raise your hand. But Mukesh, we have a comment from Shafiq, noting particularly the disconnect and lack of alignment with national strategies, plans, systems, and structures to the ABC approach. I think you spoke to that a little bit in your last slide, but maybe you want to comment a bit further on that disconnect as you see it, or maybe disagree. Additionally, Melanie has made an important comment, again, I think, coming out of your last slide about the incredible number of coordination mechanisms that ABC or ABLs, I guess the leaders, are being asked to involve, sometimes consuming 50% of their week in coordination meetings. I wonder if you'd be happy to comment on those two questions.
Yes, Shafiq, yes, that this is a challenge, then how we can overcome collectively. That's why, like, sometimes one single system may not be working, but triangulation is required. It's also based on personal also initiative. I speak with 3 ABLs. I'm not sure other cluster coordinators speaks. So they are more informed on health. I'm not sure on other, but I'm sure that they might be also doing so. One important aspect also I bring, that personality matters, whether we like or not. I have a 3 ABLs. Yesterday I spoke with one ABL, purely development focus, and I asked him that God forbid something happen in WOW, which is your development focus, what you will do? He said, no, I will ask OCHA. So it's more of like also that's we have to adapt to the context, and maybe while we test the system and then you adapt accordingly by third, having a third year in rolling out ABC, where direct leadership is represented. So ABL report direct to HCRC, which in somewhat it's helping, which like HCRC helping HCRC to make a critical decision based on field realities. So yes, it is a complex humanitarian coordination itself is a complex and area-based coordination depends. If it is working well, then it is a facilitate, but if it doesn't work, then it becomes a burden. Number of coordination mechanism, unfortunately, yes, our meeting, you have to have a dedicated person to attend the meeting and to be in coordination flora, to be remain on table. Unfortunately, that reality is there. You have to have a person, have a dedicated person who can help that not only at national level but at subnational. But it doesn't mean that it is not working. It might be solving many issues. For example, needs assessment, which you may not be knowing, but while attending a meeting or having participating in that mechanism, you have a more idea of rather than you yourself going and doing a needs assessment. So yes, it's still challenge, multiple meetings, multiple coordinations structures. Over.
Thank you again, Mukesh, for those comments. Again, just inviting colleagues to either make a question or a comment in the chat, raise their hand if they would like to add their thoughts. Seeing none, maybe I'll try and stimulate a little bit. This morning, I felt there was a lot of discussion around efficiency, and sometimes explicit. I think there was a comment about cars, but often really running through. And yet the pain of the reset has been that efficiency has been driven with the chainsaw rather than a scalpel, that has often reduced our effectiveness. So I guess the question that I had for Mukesh and for others is, does area-based coordination and leadership bring efficiency without cutting effectiveness? Is there ways to bring these other coordination mechanisms into the humanitarian response community? Or is it simply that the ABL has to run around and become an expert in everything? I see a comment from Mina. Did you want to come in, Mina, on that? It's a long one. The recommendation to streamline data across sectors, I think, is your...
Yeah, hi, can you hear me, Jim?
Sure. And then Linda up next.
No, I thought, Mukesh, that was an excellent presentation on ABC. I mean, I didn't know the depth of the coordination mechanism there. I think I just want to say congratulations for being able to achieve what you've done in a very challenging context. I had some concerns about the coordination dynamics, and you answered to that. But it's about the data. I see this as a common recommendation on how we streamline data. And you've also spoken to the geographical or sub-regional planning frameworks and that came up as a challenge. I didn't hear a recommendation specifically on how you're going to address the alignment of geographical planning frameworks. If you could briefly mention something on that. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for questions. And I'm not sure whether I will just do enough justice to your question. But in nutshell, if we want to have ABC successful, based on what we have implemented right now and multiple mechanism which we have right now, yes, ABL help in a strategic leadership, strategic coordination. But then mandated agencies needs to also have their saying. For example, health, if at state level, that leadership can be taken by any organization, WHO, UNICEF, or even INGO. But somebody has to help ABL in understanding technicalities, and which also includes bringing data and information for decision making. ABL may not have all expertise or if it is, let's say, UNDP, maybe more development, or maybe may not be having a health lens, which we as a mandated agency can help in bringing data, bringing information, bringing technicalities, helping ABL to do the strategic coordination and bring decisions making. So that's something that can be strengthened towards ABC. But yes, clusters have limitations also. At national level, we can do best, but when it comes to subnational level, we have to depend upon our partners, or some mechanism which can, like ABL led or government led. Over.
Thank you again, Mukesh. Mariana, I think you wanted to comment on this as well.
I did, and I don't want to take up too much time because I'm sure there's lots of interesting observations from other participants. I do want to respond to a few things that came particularly through the chat. I would agree with what Linda's put, that, you know, ABC has evolved organically in some places. I would go even a step further. It has evolved opportunistically in some places, because we do know lots of different places where donors in particular decided to fund area-based because they were either frustrated with what was happening at national level, and then the area-based took the form of either rapid response mechanisms or area-based mechanisms, all sorts of localized forms, and they did it out of frustration because they felt things were happening too slowly. So donors often contributed to this opportunistic evolution, if you like, of area-based mechanism, which hasn't been all for the bad. There's been a lot of good, in fact. However, what we also noticed is that precisely when this has been very donor-fueled, the moment the funding disappeared, the area-based mechanisms disappeared. So it's really about striking that balance between making sure that it's not entirely fueled by donors. Of course, you need donor support, but it actually is basing itself on the presence, the operational presence that exists, regardless of whether there will be then additional grants to do this. I would say, I think, to Alan on the questions that Alan has posed, but also on the one that Melanie has posed. So first of all, to Melanie's efficiency of meetings. I think we are now at a time where you have to be really razor sharp about what do you actually need, because we can't afford to waste a single resource, right? We're all slashing on various sides. And so if we had the luxury of having long meetings and duplicative meetings, I think, if anything, this current funding situation will hopefully discourage us from doing that. And we should, regardless of the funding, should be actually much more clear on what do we need and what do we not need. I think not meeting for the sake of meeting I think we'll need to keep on looking at that. I think it's also, if you like, a bit of a bane of our existence that people feel that they need to be in every single meeting. So I think it's also like, who really needs to be there, and that not everyone needs to be in in every meeting. So it speaks a little bit to what Mukesh has also said. It's also about trusting partners, right? That you need to have that trust that you will have partners who are completely capable of being in meetings without necessarily cluster coordinator needing to be there. So I think it's that being much more reliant on others, but also having better connections and a greater amount of trust that the people who do take it up will actually take it up well, and will not be actually, will be relaying information back and will be accountable for the work they do. The data alignment is, I think, a really important one and a difficult one because we're not completely aligned. And in terms of planning, obviously, I think there are limitations. In the end, we do need to have a national plan and we do need to align with national structures. So in terms of planning, area-based does have its limitations. And I think scale is also one of them. So it is not a solution to everything. Back to you.
Thanks, Mariana, for challenging us, I think, to be more selective and leaning into this as partners. Linda, did you want to come in a little bit on your comment? You attracted a lot of attention there.
Thanks, James. No, I was just, I was looking at Mukesh's slide with kind of ABC soup, all the different sort of approaches that could be could be classified as or promote ABC. And I was kind of thinking, how can we rationalize that? Does it need to be rationalized? Where does that take place? Or is that about, with government, with national authorities and with the HCT, they're just having greater clarity on the overview of how having an ABC plan for a country rather than this, as we say, either organic or opportunistic approach? Because it's, that's a lot of meetings to go to, and I'm sure many of our health cluster partners are in many of those meetings as well. So how can we use the opportunity now of ABC being promoted as a strategic intent to help rationalise, still move ahead and further develop ABC, but rationalise it as an approach in a country? And then, interesting, Marina, you made the point about trust and relaying information. We know that relaying information is one of the worst aspects or the least effective aspects of clusters, even between national and subnational level. So how is it going to be done differently? What needs to be done differently to make that work through ABC approach, even at a deeper administrative level as well? I think there needs to be, and how are we setting those parameters and kind of principles of ABC? Some of this is in the report, or at least touched on the report, but we're going to have quite a think through about this. Thanks.
Thanks, Linda, for coming in. Melanie has brought in a comment that was very much in my mind. South Sudan is a protracted crisis that has an evolving humanitarian development environment, including the health sector transformation plan that Mukesh referred to with subnational capacity. For acute events, is there a negotiation at the top strategic level to say that the health sector's transformation plan should be the technical capacity to drive that? Or is there an organic discussion, such as Mukesh described for a while, to see that group of people, that expertise, step in when an acute event happens, whether it's a conflict displacement or a cholera outbreak, etc.? Mukesh, I think you wanted to come in, and I hope you do, as well as others.
Yeah, James, I agree with Melanie's point, and that's the way to also go. But then, whether we like or not, development mechanism and humanitarian mechanism have their own pace. For us, I'm not saying that development is not focus also, but for us, getting things done important, whether I do directly or I do go through government or I go through partner, whatever the best way to provide response, we go. While regular health services or development or traditional one brings hierarchy into that. Oh, I cannot speak with direct state. I cannot speak with the direct or national cannot speak with direct county. But having said, in HSTP, what we are going to pilot now is that we have 80 counties and NGO has been allocated. So we are going to use that NGO and staff to strengthen humanitarian coordination. Probably end of this year, we should be establishing, and this will be in consultation with authorities as well as participating organizations such as UNICEF, WHO, and World Bank. So it's a consensus that that organization will lead and coordinate humanitarian health operations at county level. Over.
Somebody needs to go and mute.
I don't know if that was me, but I'll see if maybe that was somebody trying to come in to comment. Just looking.
No, that's okay now. It was just me muting somebody.
Okay, great. who is that? Gabrielle.
Thanks, James. So I was attending on the 20th of May, so 4 weeks ago, a GORN meeting, so Global Outbreak Alert, blah, blah. And MSF was presenting about cholera in South Sudan. So I'm just reporting what MSF is saying. Probably you, Dr. Mukesh, you know already. But my point is not to just show, report the challenges that they were presenting, but also to maybe altogether make a reflection of what the ABC could bring in a positive way for the future in a context like South Sudan, where we know that there are more than 50 or more than 50,000 cholera cases in this year 2025. So there were say challenges, surveillance and delayed early detection and confirmation. Point two, weaker preparedness, response capacity and coordination with delays and inability of actors to initiate and scale up. The third point, which to me is also critical, is funding. Emergency response mechanisms were not flexible. It took several weeks for fund to be released. And then inadequate capacity, know-how to set up a cholera treatment facility, emergency wash, etc. And of course, access challenges and delays in OCD proposal. And then as well, STP, so the former pool fund limitation. So the emergency pillar or pool fund or HSTP has zero money, delays in payment of incentive and persistent supply chain in health facilities. So looking forward, what they were proposing is a flexible funding mechanism. I think this is something that we need to discuss also with among us, but also with OCHA, whether or not the ABC can receive a flexible funding mechanism for surge capacity, etc. Invest in capacity building for the Ministry of Health, and then I need to reinforce UN agency capacity at the state and county level to ensure staff are equipped. So this is the technical aspect that we were mentioning before. And donors should ensure funding is a channel to actors with emergency response capacity. So this is what MSF was presented 4 weeks ago at GORN. So it is a platform that is meeting on monthly basis or every 15 days, and now I don't remember. And I think, Dr. Mukesh, maybe you can comment on this and then see what the ABC could bring better in terms of emergency response, preparedness, response capacity, because I think this is something that we as a global health cluster, we want to always and of course to ensure. Thanks.
May I, James?
Please.
Yeah, so thanks, Gabriela. And what MSF presents, that's yes, that was reality. But you know, cholera outbreak struck at wrong time. I won't say it. Ideally, it should not struck at all, but it was a wrong time. And then couple of things. HSTP was transitioning. It just started because in September last year, May, and then it took little while to come into the implementation, full implementation. And there were also hiccups in partners transition, because partners in previous HPF were different, and now another with new mechanism were different. So that was also problem. HSTP little bit design issue was there. They made some assumption that we will have a same level of funding like we used to have a previous years. And this has drastically, with BHA's reduction, BHA's defunding, it has been severely affected. That has also affected partners' presence in field. So that's what MSF says. Exactly, that's issue. With HSTP, yes, there is no flexibility. It's a fixed package. and there is no scope of emergency response. But this one HSTP is taking into consideration of like a 10%, adding a 10% flexibility, which used to be in HPF. So HPF used to be a 10% flexible emergency funding, which on recommendation of health cluster, they release to the partner. So this was not there. So hopefully this will be coming. And yes, this is a government led. So hopefully when we finish next year, we will have a more better situation and better outcome than what we had this year for cholera response. Over.
Thanks, Mukesh. Mariana, did you want to come in for the last word?
No, thank you. I think he's captured it well. I don't really have much to add. I think maybe just 2 sentences on area-based that, it is a relatively new model in the sense we're talking about it much more. It will not be a solution to all our issues. There are many good things about it, but there are also challenges, and I think it will require us to be much more organized and to be much more supportive of local actors and much more willing to give and share power and information. But
Great.
definitely potential.
Thanks for those words. I'm going to be sticking with Mukesh's comment. It's the wrong time for aid to be cut when needs are increasing. It's the wrong time for cholera when we're trying to reorganize, but I think we will overcome with area-based programming and other approaches. So thank you for bringing us up to speed and giving us some direction on where we should go. I'm going to hand over to Gabriele, I think, to wrap us up for the day.
Thanks, Dr. Mukesh, thanks Marina, and thanks James. I think we are well ahead. So let's use maybe these a few minutes to wrap up as we move from the humanitarian reset. This humanitarian reset was and is a proactive response to this widespread crisis of legitimacy, morale, and the funding that we are experiencing, all of us. I remember last year we were talking about with Mike Ryan about solidarity among us. Today we were talking as well about trust. I think we go back as well to these important values that we need to uphold always. And the humanitarian response, humanitarian reset, of course, will not only move by itself. We need to wait as well. It was the message from Altaf. We need to wait as well the outcome of this UN80 process, which will kind of modify or change or affect the mandate of the different UN agencies. So it's important also to remain vigilant to see what this will bring. But at the same time, the message from Altaf is we need to protect the coordination space within health. And I believe that this is what as well we, as a global cluster, with the support from Save the Children, for which I really wanted to give my thank, we were able to as well place as a powerful statement during the WHA 78 meeting in the month of May that we wanted to safeguard as well the health coordination capacity. We need, as Taf said, we need to streamline operation. We need to hyper-prioritize. This hyper-prioritization that, of course, means today only 114 million people will be targeted with only $29 billion requested versus the 44 billion that were originally requested. So this is a cut. And this means that also rationalization. But as Ted was saying, we are not in a vacuum, so we do not want to enter and doing our things and leaves when the emergency is over, but we want to build on the system already available. So this building on the system already available, already present, means working with the national actor, means working with the ministries, Minister of Health for us, means as well really trying to use this keyword of sustainability. What we can do that can when we live relies on the presence of local and government structures. In that sense as well, talking about vacuum, also ABC is not in a vacuum, as Marina was saying. Is not doesn't have to be only donor fuel. It doesn't have to be growing out of opportunistic situation. Has to be something more rational, more organic, more based on the operational presence of the different actors in the field. And this means as well that we need, of course, to improve this tool of area-based coordination, because today we see that although cannot be a solution for everything, we see that sometimes, as Shafik was saying, there is a huge disconnect between the capital and the peripheral, and this, of course, is creating as well a lot of confusion. So, is a new model. Can this model foster and bolster multi-sectoriality, better knowledge of the local need? We need to rationalize this model to have a more developed approach with a good, healthy information sharing between the capital and the periphery. But at the same time, we need to support those in the periphery, able to do capacity building as well for data collection, analysis. At the same time, so we need to provide the technical support. This is also the role, I believe, of the F cluster to provide the technical support to a technical guidance to ABL. So I will say we stop there for today. I thank you for your active contribution, input, for your reflection, and then to the different speakers. And then we see each other tomorrow at the same time of today. Have a good continuation of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.